Welcome to our second presentation. This one is on organizing. It's really on my system of organizing. I'm going to talk a little bit about organizing in general, how I organize my stamps, what needs to kind of be improved, and why I am taking a whole year to work through this project. Again, just like the first video, I do have a really sketchy voice, so it's a little worse today than it was yesterday when I recorded my other video. So hopefully we'll make it through, but I apologize if I sound a little hoarse, and if there's any pauses or weird pauses, it's because I stopped the presentation to take a drink and clear my throat. So let's get started. The first thing that I really want to talk about is some of the myths about organizing. I actually saw several of them posted on the message boards as we've been talking about getting ready for this class. So I just kind of wanted to go over them real quickly. Myth number one is that my system will work for you. I know you're all excited to hear about my system and how I organize my stamps, but the truth is that you probably won't be able to take my exact system and make it work for you. It's just not going to happen. You may not have the same space as me. You may not have the same number of stamps. You may not have the same style of stamps that I'm using. You need to make the system work for you. I'm really lucky in that I have a large space to work with, but some of you may be working from your dining room table or share your space with an office or a bedroom, or I've seen craft rooms in a closet. So don't think that my system is going to fit your situation. That's just going to lead to frustration. My goal with telling you my system is to inspire you to create something that works for you so that you are better able to utilize your stamps. Myth number two is once you are organized, you are done. Well, that would only be true if you never bought another stamp. And I think we know each other well enough now that we can safely assume we will all be purchasing more stamps in the future. I know I will be, so that means I need to not necessarily just get organized, but also create a system that I can continue to use as I acquire new stamps. So you need to make sure that it's something that you can easily absorb new stamps into. Myth number three is that you only need room for what you have. Again, refer back to myth number two in my discussion there. That would be true only if you never purchased another item. But you'd be surprised how many people get only exactly what they need to organize what they have on hand, and it doesn't allow room for growth. And I have done this, I will admit, many times through my crafting journey. I have outgrown more organizational pieces than I cared to admit. And so now I'm very careful to make sure if I'm reorganizing something that whatever it is has enough room for me to add more to it. Otherwise, it's probably not going to work. I'm going to end up having to get something else. So if you're limited on space, then you also have to decide, will I be adding in new things if I can only get rid of something else? And sometimes that's a good system to have. If it's full, then you need to maybe think about donating some items or selling them so that you have room for the new things. And the last one that I put on here is actually only a partial myth, and that is that being more organized or being organized will make you more creative. I don't necessarily think that's true. It can be true to the extent that if your space, creative space, is just one gigantic mess where you cannot find anything, that's probably going to inhibit your creativity a bit. On the flip side, there are plenty of people who use cleaning and organizing as a substitute for actually being creative, much like those of us who shop as a substitute. So just because I have a large number of stamps in my house doesn't make me any more creative. And so you need to be careful about this. Organizing in and of itself can become almost as addictive as shopping if you like to do that. Like I have a sister who loves to clean, and whenever she stresses, she cleans. And that I did not get that genetic dysfunction. So I have others. She got that one. So be careful of that trap. And that's part of, I'll talk a bit why I'm doing this for a whole year. And that's part of it, because you can get really sucked into the organizational process, and that's going to keep you from being creative. Being creative requires you to sit down and be creative. The two are not mutually exclusive. So now I will say some people are far more creative when they can see what they have. And you need to take that into account. If you are someone who has to see what you have on hand in order to be creative, then you might think of a different binding system than the one I'm using. You might think of one where you can easily see what stamps you have. Maybe you can, if you can't put them up on the wall. If you read through the teachers' interviews, you'll see Catherine has a stamp wall, which I think is wonderful. Her father built it for her. I would love to have something like that, but I don't have the wall space in my room to do that. And so that's not going to work for me. If I was someone who was really visual, I would probably put together my binding system a little different so that I could see exactly, look at some of the stamps that I have in drawers every time I walk into my room. There are ways of doing that. A flip style binder where you can kind of, that's on an easel where you can flip through the pages and see what's on each page. I would probably choose something like that. Or you're going to see my shoe rack in a little bit. I would probably choose something like along that line if I really needed to see everything. I'm also not someone who needs to have everything put away in order to be creative. So you have to decide what works best for you and then build your system around that. Those are our myths. Let's move on to my stamps. So where exactly do I keep my stamps? Well, the truth is I keep them in a number of areas. I have some of these drawers. These drawers fit the CD cases perfectly. So all together I have, oh golly, I have to do math here. That's just not right. I have 12 drawers. 12 of these drawers. Are they all filled? No. In fact, 2 of them are completely empty. So it allows me some room to grow. And even the drawers that have some in, there's only a few of them that are completely full. So I have some overflow room. And I may, as this process goes along, decide to get rid of some as well. I also keep some on a converted shoe rack. If you have been in Everyday Moodlings, there is a presentation on the shoe rack and kind of how to set it up. The stamps that I keep here are I'll talk about what stamps, in a minute I'll talk about what stamps are on each place. And then I also have one of these clip it up tabletop holders, and that sits on my workspace, and it has stamps on there as well. Does this system work right now? Actually, it really does. One of the myths that I didn't put in that I should have is that one single system will work for any situation, and that's not true. Stamps are not like CDs. They don't all come in the same type of packaging. They're all not the same size or the same thickness or the same shape. And so sometimes one system will not work for another. So you have to keep that in mind. If I was starting from scratch, I would sort my stamps by where I could organize them before I decided, to invest in the organizational products. I would decide how I wanted to store each type of stamp. So here are my binders. I believe I've shown you a picture of them already. These house the images from my stamps. Most stamps come with a printed image sheet, whether it's a clear or it's on paper. They almost all come with printed images. And so that's what goes into these binders. Now, some of my older stamps, before I started this system, I've long since lost the printed images. So I have to go ahead and deal with that as I organize them through the year. This is what the inside of the binder looked like. As you see pictures of my binders, you're going to see some really funky paper in here. And that was because when I originally used these binders, and I have used them for a number of different organizational pieces throughout the years. For a while, they held die cuts. Anyway, I wanted to have paper in each of these half-size page protectors. That's the route I went. I wanted page protectors in there. But I needed paper in the page protector, and so I just collected cardstock from my room that I knew I would never use way back when, when we bought those big, huge stacks of cardstock of multiple colors, and gosh, some of those colors were just so hideously ugly. And so you'll see them in these binders. There's some really awful yellow, some gray, some hideous orangey pink color. Anyway, I was just using what I had. And you'll see that what I do is I just slip in those printed images. Sometimes I take them down, sometimes I don't. It depends on the size of them. So this is basically how my system works. And here you'll see that hideous orange pinkish color. Ugh, it's awful. I'm sure somebody loves this color, but it's not me. So, okay, so I'm going to tell you how the whole system works. You'll see the binder in back. This is a white binder. On the front, there's a label for the drawer. Remember back when I showed you the drawers, they were all alphabetized. I think I have A through L is what I have. This binder is for drawer I and J. I and J holds my paper tray ink stamps. I has the ones that do not have any dies associated with them. J has the ones with dies. You'll see that there's a CD case off to your right. And the nice thing about Paper Tray Ink is that they provide the CD case for you. Although you can buy them still, it's sometimes a little harder to find them, but you can buy them in a large quantity on Amazon. I think I'll stock up because I'm really afraid they're just going to completely go away someday. So a couple of things. Obviously, all my stamps are in here, and I think there's multiple sets in this particular CD case. And on top, you'll notice a little white label there. It is the drawer and then the number of the CD case. Now, why do I number them? Because a drawer might have 20 CDs cases in there. And when it comes to things like sentiments, because they're clear, sometimes it's really hard to tell what's in each case. And so I do number them. I also don't really care if my stamps get stained because the truth is it's easier to find what I want when they're colored a bit. So that's the J and the I, and you'll notice there are 2 dots off on the end. Those 2 dots are really about this challenge. There was 1 dot on there if I've organized it, meaning the printed images are in the binder, there's a label on the CD case, and a corresponding label on the page in the binder, and I'll show you that in a minute. The second dot is for if I've used something from this stamp set for the challenge. That way I won't repeatedly use the same images or stamp sets, particularly when we get to October and November. So here is the binder page, and you'll notice down in the corner there's a J1, so I know what case it is. You'll notice on the top of this particular printed image there are 2 dots. That means that one's organized and I've used it. And so that should help me throughout the year as I go through this process. Some of you may not want to write on your stuff. I understand that. I don't really care. I'll write all over it. That's just my preference. So whatever works for you. Now inside the binder, I do have Post-it note tabs. Love those tabs. Anyway, that divide up each drawer, because each binder has 2 drawers, and some binders have multiple sections for each drawer, so that I can easily find what it is that I'm looking for. Now I wanted to go over what's in my binders. Some of what I put together is completely random. Like don't feel like you have to have similar stamps in the same drawer. Some of mine do go together. Some of them are together in a drawer because that's the space worked for it. It fit. So binder A and B, you'll see here is a list of what's in. A is backgrounds, borders, corners, frames, and architecture. B is birthday celebrations and holidays. In binder C, D, you'll see in my drawer C, I have some long cases. That means the stamping case is long, and so I can only fit a certain number of stamps in there. Actually, I think there's only 5 of them, and they're from a specific company called CDs, which was bought out by one company and then bought out by another, and I don't even know if you can buy them anymore. I think you can find a few online still, but not very many. And I'll probably reorganize those as we go through this process, because there's not very many stamps in there, and they're taking up a lot of room. So I'm going to see what else I can come up with. In drawer D, I have floral, outdoor, nature, and animals that are not pets. Binder EF, and drawer E, I have collage, artsy, travel, time, vintage, and then F is my sentiment and titles, excluding everything from Paper Tray Ink, which have their own drawers. In binder GH, I have basic shapes, journaling blocks, kids, babies, hearts, and stars. Oh, and I should say in H, it's not ended on here, pets as well. In binder J and I, like I said, I have Paper Tray Ink. In binder K and L, those 2 drawers, and they really include the same thing. They are stamps that just don't fit anywhere else. So I'm sure you have a large number of them. They just don't fit in a specific area. They're arrows or borders or banners or labels, or just really random items. They go in those drawers. Then I also have my shoe rack, converted shoe rack, and that rack, on the top I have my embossing folders. On the bottom I have my Spellbinder and Paper Tray Ink dies, and right in the middle I have stamps. I have Just Right Stampers and Tim Holtz. And the reason they are there is because both of those stamps are the rubber ones, not the clear ones, and both of those companies provide a acrylic piece that the stamps are on. Now I could put them in a binder, but I just like this system better, so I just hook them onto the shoe rack. It would be silly to try to take them off there and put them into CD cases, and they're really thick, so I don't know even if I could do that. And then I have my tabletop system, and those are my most used stamps. And I also have the Tim Holtz ATC stamps on there because it's just one stamp, so it works better on there than the shoe rack. And they're on there because they're really too thick to fit into a CD case, so that's a better spot for them. Like I said, the system works for me at this point. At some point in my life, I may come up with something better, but for right now, it works. So, why am I taking a whole year to do this? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I find organizing highly tedious. And so if I just sat down and took 2 weeks to organize everything, oh God, I would hate it. And I would end up not caring towards the end and not doing a very good job. which is what I tend to do. Like if I'm organizing a room and if I don't take it in stages, at the end of it, hell, I'm organizing everything. I'm throwing stuff away. I don't care because I just want it done. Some of you may really enjoy that process and maybe you could just sit down and do it. But for me, it's just too overwhelming. So I'm taking it one step at a time. Now this process, I'll show you what I'm going to do in the video, the supplemental video. I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do each stamp set so you get a clearer idea of the process. The other reason why I am taking a whole year is that it gives me a chance to kind of alter my plan if it's not working quite right. And the best example of that I can give you is I have moved many times in my life, and I have learned that when it comes to my kitchen, and I use my kitchen a lot, I cook a lot, I cannot set up the kitchen the day I walk into the house. I don't know the flow of the room. I don't know where I really want things. So oftentimes I just shove them in the cupboards where I think they might go, and then I work in the room. And as I work in the room, I decide, no, I really want this there, or I want this there. And then I figure out how to organize the room. And that may take me a couple of months before I really get it figured out. So that's the other reason why I'm taking a whole year. Because along the way I may decide, and I'm assuming that I will, find things that I need to change. And it gives me that option to do that rather than, getting it all done in 1 week or 2 weeks and then halfway through this challenge deciding I got to change it. And that, I think, is a very depressing thought. So give yourself that space or that freedom to kind of just let it evolve as it's supposed to instead of rushing it. So that's my best advice to you in this process. Okay, this is my system. I'm sure many of you have systems. I really would like you to share those so that we all have a good idea of, that we can all be inspired by each other. Particularly if you have a smaller space or a smaller room, I would love to know what it is that you do and if it's working for you and how you can make changes to improve it. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, please post them in the message board and I will definitely stop by and help you as best I can. Good luck.